Okay, so something is happening right now in someone's energy, and I need to talk about it immediately because it is loud and it is specific, and it has been sitting in my chest since I woke up this morning, waiting for me to say it out loud. Something is pressing on me to get this out, and I have learned by now that when spirit is this insistent about something, I just start talking and figure out the organization later. So that is what I am doing. I am starting right now. Someone chose you. Not because the other options disappeared, not because circumstances narrowed the field, and you were what was left when everything else fell away. Not because they settled or compromised or talked themselves into something that felt comfortable enough. They looked, and I mean they actually looked. They took their time with it, they were deliberate, they were not in a rush. They surveyed everything available to them across a significant period of time, and they kept coming back to you. Every single time without fail. Like there was a current running between them and your energy that they could redirect their attention away from, but could never fully break. And I think that is something you have not fully allowed yourself to believe yet. I think you have been holding this information carefully at a distance because you have been trained by enough disappointment, by enough situations where you thought you were being chosen and then discovered the choosing was conditional or temporary or contingent on you. Performing a particular version of yourself you have been trained by all of that to be suspicious of good things when they arrive without an obvious catch attached to them. And I get that. I genuinely understand that reflex, and I am not here to tell you it is wrong. But today, Spirit is asking you to set that reflex down for a little while and actually receive what is being shown in this reading. Because what is happening in this person's energy right now is not small, and it is not casual, and it is not something you should allow your protective instincts to talk you out of receiving fully. You deserve to understand exactly what is happening here and exactly what it means for where things are going. Chosen from a crowd, okay? Let me take a moment to paint this properly, because I think the scale of what I am seeing actually matters, and I do not want to compress it into something smaller than it is just for the sake of keeping things tidy. This person, the one whose energy is saturating this entire reading right now, has options. Real, genuine, available options. And I do not mean that as a throwaway observation. I mean it as a literal, energetic fact that is coming through with a clarity that is hard to ignore. People want their attention. People make themselves visible and available to them in ways that are not subtle. People invest effort into being noticed and remembered by this person, and they are not unaware of any of that. They see it, they register it, they understand what is being offered to them from multiple directions simultaneously. And here is what I keep being shown over and over as I sit in this energy. They look at all of it. They take it in. They are not dismissive of the attention or oblivious to the options. And then something in them goes quiet and returns to you. Not with the frantic energy of someone who has exhausted their other options and is falling back on what is familiar. Not with the confused energy of someone who does not know what they want and is cycling through possibilities. With something that feels almost like a settling, like an exhale, like a person who has been searching for something specific in a crowded room and has just spotted it across the space and thought there it is. Yeah, it was always going to be that one. And they move toward it, not with urgency, but with the calm certainty of someone who has finally confirmed what they already suspected. And I want you to sit with that image for a moment, because I think your brain is already working to find the catch in it. I think part of you is already running through the reasons this might not be as real as it sounds. Maybe they're confused right now. Maybe this is a phase. Maybe once the novelty wears off, they will recalibrate and realize they want something different from what you are. And I understand completely why your mind goes to those places first. When you have been in situations where being chosen turned out to mean something smaller and more conditional than it first appeared, of course you are careful. Of course, new information gets held at a distance until it has proven it can hold its own weight over time. That is not a flaw in you. That is intelligence wearing the costume of caution. But what Spirit is pressing me to tell you right now is that the protection can afford to soften just slightly. Because what this person is extending toward you is not the conditional kind. And the reason you cannot quite bring yourself to fully believe that yet is actually one of the most interesting threads in this entire reading. What they saw that others missed, I want to talk about when this started. The actual moment when something shifted in this person and they registered you differently than they had before. Because I think it matters, and I think when I describe it, you are going to recognize it, and it is going to surprise you in a specific way. The moment this person actually locked in on you, the moment something in them said quietly and without drama, okay, this is the one I keep returning to. This is the one I cannot argue myself out of, was not a moment you would have selected as your personal highlight reel. It was not you at your most impressive, or your most polished, or your most carefully presented. It was not a night when you were consciously performing your best self, or working deliberately to be noticed and remembered. It was something much quieter than that. It was a moment when you were simply you, fully, uncomplicatedly, unself-consciously you. Not adjusting, not monitoring how you were landing, not calibrating your presentation based on what you sensed the room needed from you. Just present, just real, just existing in your own skin, without apology or effort or strategy. And something about the specific quality of you when you are not trying to be anything other than exactly what you are, stopped them cold in a way they were not prepared for. Because here is what I am getting about this person's specific experience of you. They have spent time around people who know how to present themselves impressively. They are not naive about performance. They know the difference between someone who is compelling because they have carefully constructed themselves to appear that way, and someone who is compelling because there is something genuinely alive in them that has not been curated or managed or edited down for public consumption. They know that difference in the first few minutes of encountering someone. And when they encountered you, when they really encountered you, not the careful version, but the unguarded version. The version that exists when you have stopped thinking about being perceived, they felt the difference land in their chest immediately. It made them look twice, when once should have been sufficient. It made something in them go quiet, in the way that things go quiet when something important is happening that you do not want to disturb by making too much noise around it. It made them pay attention in a way that was not on their agenda and that they did not particularly plan for. And that kind of attention, the unplanned kind, the kind that arrives without your permission and refuses to be redirected, is the most honest kind there is. You did not engineer this. You did not perform the right sequence of things at the right moments to manufacture this result. You were simply present and real and fully yourself. And for someone like this person, someone who exists in spaces where those qualities are genuinely rare, that was the most compelling thing in the room. The long consideration, okay, so here, is where things get very specific, and where I think a significant number of you are going to feel this land in a way that is almost uncomfortably accurate. This person did not arrive at their choice quickly. The decision was not impulsive. It was not made in a single moment of feeling and then acted on immediately. And I want to spend some time on this because I think the length of their consideration has cost you something emotionally, and I think you deserve to understand what was actually happening during that time rather than carrying the interpretation you have probably been carrying. If you have been aware of this person's energy for a while, if there have been stretches where you felt the connection strongly, and then felt them pull back, felt them go quieter than usual, felt them become harder to read than you expected, or then felt fair, I think that pattern has planted a specific doubt in you. I think you have had moments of sitting alone with it and thinking maybe you constructed this out of nothing. Maybe what you felt coming from them was not what you interpreted it to be. Maybe you allowed yourself to read too much meaning into something that was always more casual on their side than it was on yours. You did not construct this. The feeling was accurate from the beginning. The connection was real when you first felt it, and it has remained real throughout every moment when it felt ambiguous or uncertain. What you were experiencing as withdrawal or distance was not a signal that interest was fading. What was actually happening during those quieter periods is that this person was testing their own reactions. They were doing the internal work of distinguishing between what they felt and what they thought they should feel. They are not someone who trusts impulse alone. They watch themselves. They push against their own desires to see whether those desires hold up under pressure or dissolve when examined closely. And every time they pushed against what they felt toward you, every time they tried to locate a clean reason to redirect their attention somewhere else, every time they looked at their other options and tried to find the argument for choosing something more straightforward, the argument did not come together. Their attention returned to you before they were finished constructing the case against it. They tried, on more than one occasion, to talk themselves into a different direction, not because they wanted to be cruel or because they were playing any kind of game, but because the strength of what they felt toward you specifically was something they needed to be sure about before they acted on it. Because they understood, on some level, that what they were considering was not a casual or easily reversible decision. And so they took the time. They were thorough about it. They were almost frustratingly careful. And eventually, not quickly, not without a real internal process, but eventually they stopped being able to construct a convincing argument for anything other than what they already knew. The choice became undeniable. And then they made it, deliberately, consciously, with full awareness of what they were choosing and why. The crown being placed now, I want to talk about what is actually happening in the energy right now, at this specific moment. Because I feel something shifting as I sit in this, and it is significant enough that I want to name it carefully. Something is being extended toward you. And it is not just attention or interest or the early tentative energy of someone who is considering their options. This has moved past that stage. What is coming through now has the quality of something more formal, something that carries the weight of recognition, of acknowledgement, like a private internal moment where this person is saying to themselves, clearly and without reservation, "This is who you are to me, and this is how I am going to treat you going forward. This is the place you occupy." And I keep getting this image that will not leave me alone, and I want to share it because it is specific, and I think it means something. I keep seeing something being placed, not thrown, not handed over carelessly, not offered tentatively in case it gets rejected. Placed with both hands, with deliberateness, with the kind of careful attention you give to something when you fully understand its value and you do not want to drop it or damage it by being careless with it. And the thing being placed is not decorative. It is not a performance for anyone watching from the outside. It is a private moment of clarity that is happening internally in this person right now, and that is about to begin expressing itself outwardly in how they show up for you, in what they offer, in how they speak about you and position you in the context of their actual life. That is the crown energy that is all over this reading. It is not primarily about public celebration or external validation, though some of that may absolutely materialize. It is about something more intimate than that. It is about a person arriving at a private, unperformed certainty about who you are to them, and beginning to act from that certainty rather than from caution or ambiguity or the managed distance of someone who is still deciding. The deciding is done. What is beginning now is the showing up. And I want you to be genuinely ready for that, because I think some of you are going to be tempted to minimize it when it arrives in front of you. To say internally, oh, it is probably not as significant as it seems, probably do not read too much into this particular gesture. Probably hold back and wait for more evidence before letting yourself feel anything about it. And I understand that reflex all the way down. But I want you to try something consciously different this time. I want you to practice letting it mean what it means in the moment that it means it. Let yourself be chosen without immediately activating the part of you that is calculating the risk of having been wrong about it. Why you specifically okay? So I want to address something that I feel sitting in the back of some of your minds as you take all of this in. And I want to address it directly because I think it is actually one of the most important pieces of this whole reading. The question is, why me? Out of everyone available, out of all the people making themselves visible and accessible to this person, out of all the options genuinely on the table, why did the energy settle on me specifically? And I want to answer that not to give you a flattering speech, but because I think the actual honest answer to that question is something that you need to carry forward beyond just this situation. It landed on you because of what you went through and who you became as a direct result of going through it, not in spite of your difficult seasons because of them, because of what they burned away, because of what they forced you to become when you had no other option but to become it. The version of you that this person encountered when they encountered the real you, that version, was shaped by everything you survived, by the times you were overlooked when you deserved to be seen, by the relationships that required constant performance and left you empty, by the seasons when you poured everything you had into situations that gave back almost nothing, and you had to find a way to keep going anyway, by the slow, unglamorous, largely unwitnessed process of rebuilding yourself after things that broke you in ways you are still not sure you have fully named. All of those experiences did something specific and irreversible to you. They stripped away the layers that were not authentically you to begin with. The people-pleasing layers, the performing for approval layers, the adjusting yourself to fit what someone else needs layers, the trying to earn love rather than simply existing in it layers. And what was left when all of that fell away, what emerged from the other side of all that difficulty, is a version of you that is extraordinarily genuine, extraordinarily unmanufactured, a version that does not have a public face and a private face that are different from each other, a version that says what it means and means what it says, not as a personality trait, but as a lived practice that was earned through experience. And that is what this person found when they found the real you. That is the thing that made them look twice. That is the thing they kept returning to in their mind during the long period of consideration. That is the quality they were trying to name and could not quite find the right word for, but could feel with complete certainty was there. You did not arrive at being chosen by being the most impressive person in the room. You arrived at it by becoming the most real. And real, when someone who has been surrounded by performance finally encounters it, is the thing that cannot be unfelt. It changes what everything else looks like by comparison. What changes now? So let's talk about what this actually means going forward in practical terms. Because I do not want to leave you sitting in the feeling of this without giving you something concrete to carry into the next days and weeks. What is shifting in the dynamic between you and this person is a movement in who is doing the reaching. And I want to be clear about what I mean by that, because I am not talking about games or power dynamics in the manipulative sense. I am talking about something entirely organic. Before now, during the period of observation and consideration that I described earlier, the energy was primarily about you simply existing, simply being present and real, and doing what you naturally do without trying to create a particular effect. And that natural, unforced quality is precisely what drew this person in and held their attention through all the moments when they tried to redirect it. But something has shifted. The consideration period is closing, or has already closed. A decision has been made internally and is beginning to move outward. And what that shift means for you practically is that this person is going to start reaching in ways that are more visible, more legible, more clearly intentional than what you have seen from them before. The ambiguity that may have characterized some of the earlier energy between you is resolving. Things are going to start becoming clearer. Their actions are going to begin communicating what their words may not have fully expressed yet. And the question that this shift places in front of you is not about them at all. The question it places in front of you is whether you can receive what is coming without deflecting it or minimizing it, or preemptively bracing against the possibility of disappointment. And for a significant number of you watching this, and I say this with complete gentleness, receiving is actually harder than it sounds. Receiving requires you to be still while something moves toward you. It requires a kind of openness that feels genuinely vulnerable. When you have spent time in situations where what was offered was eventually revealed to be smaller than it appeared, or was taken back without warning. Receiving at full capacity requires a trust that is not easy to access when your history has given you legitimate reasons to be careful. But that is the specific invitation in this energy right now. To practice receiving without immediately managing the experience into something more controllable. To let this person show you who they are and what they mean at the pace they are moving, rather than rushing it or armoring against it prematurely. You are allowed to want this. You are allowed to let yourself feel good about being chosen. You are allowed to receive recognition at full volume without immediately turning it down to a more manageable level. The million who weren't chosen okay, I want to return to the million others for a moment, because I think there is something in that framing that deserves more than a passing mention. Because I know some of you, I can feel the specific energy as I say it. Some of you are going to spend time, maybe already have been spending time, thinking about the other people, who they were, what they had, what they offered, whether any of them came close, whether this person could change their mind if a particular someone came along at a particular moment. And I need you to hear me very directly on this, because this way of thinking is going to cost you something if you let it run unchecked. That is not the right question. Who else was in consideration is not the information that tells you anything useful about what you have. The useful question, the one that actually carries meaning, is why. When this person sat alone with everything available to them and had complete freedom to choose in any direction, they kept arriving back at you specifically. And the answer to that question has nothing to do with comparison. It is not about you outranking someone else on a list of qualities. It is not about being more beautiful or more accomplished or more strategically positioned than another person. It is about something that is far less reducible than any of that. It is about fit. It is about the specific, unreplicable combination of who you are meeting, the specific combination of who this person is, and something in that meeting being so undeniably right that it kept reasserting itself, no matter how many times they tried to move their attention elsewhere. That kind of fit cannot be manufactured by trying harder. It cannot be engineered through strategy or timing or presenting yourself more skillfully. It either exists between two specific people or it does not exist. And when it genuinely exists, when it is truly there in the way it is here, a person knows it even when they are trying not to know it. Even when they are looking in every other direction for a more convenient or more straightforward option. Even when knowing it is slightly inconvenient or complicated or requires them to be braver than they feel prepared to be. They know. This person knows. They have known for longer than they have been ready to fully admit out loud. And they are done not admitting it. If this is someone from your past now, I want to speak to a specific group of you for a moment. Because this energy is coming through strongly enough that I would be doing you a disservice by not addressing it directly. Some of you watching this reading is not about someone new. This is about someone you already have real history with. Someone who was in your life in a significant way before, who left or created distance or made choices that put a painful amount of space between you, and who is now moving back toward you with an energy that feels meaningfully different from what they brought the last time. And that specific situation comes with its own complicated emotional layer that is different from what someone encountering new energy would experience. If this is a person from your past, an ex, a former close friend, someone who underestimated you at a critical moment and is now experiencing in real time the consequences of that underestimation, the energy I am getting is not to approach this with your arms crossed and your defenses fully activated. But it is also not to simply open the door because the pull feels familiar. and the familiarity feels like safety. The energy is to watch what they bring this time with honest, clear, patient attention. Because there is a real and important difference between someone who is returning because they have genuinely done the internal work of understanding what happened and becoming someone different because of that understanding, and someone who is returning primarily because they are uncomfortable with what your life looks like without them in it. There is a difference between real transformation and better strategy. And the difference expresses itself not in what someone says when they first come back, but in how they show up consistently over time when the initial energy of the return has settled into something more ordinary. So let them show you which kind of returning this is. Give it the time it needs to become clear. Do not make the decision based on how good it feels to have them back in your orbit, because of course it feels good they matter to you, and the familiarity of them is real. Make the decision based on what their consistent behavior over time tells you about who they actually are now versus who they were before. Your gut will know. Your body will tell you. The part of you that has been calibrated by everything you have been through will send you information that is accurate if you are willing to receive it honestly rather than filtering it through what you want to be true. And regardless of which category this falls into, regardless of whether this becomes something you choose to step fully into or something you receive as confirmation of your worth and then protect yourself from the crown energy, is real. The recognition is real, and it is happening whether you engage with it or not. Someone is genuinely elevating how they see you. What you do with that is entirely your decision to make in your own time, at your own pace. Both choices can be the right one depending on what you actually know about this specific person and this specific situation. What you carry forward from this, okay? So what do you actually do with all of this? Because I do not want to leave you sitting in the warmth of this reading without giving you something real to take into your actual life beyond this video. What I want you to take from this is a single thing, and it is not primarily about this person. It is about you and about what this moment confirms about who you have become. The fact that someone looked at everything available to them and chose you without hesitation, chose you after extended deliberate consideration, chose you from a genuine place of certainty rather than convenience, that is not luck. That is not random good timing. That is a direct result of something you did. Something quiet and unglamorous and largely unwitnessed that you did over a significant period of time. You became real. You became fully and uncomplicatedly yourself. Not as a performance of authenticity, but as the actual lived result of going through enough that the performance became impossible to maintain. You became someone who does not have to try to be compelling, because the compellingness is just what you are when you are simply present. You became someone whose private self and public self are not meaningfully different from each other. And that quality, that specific, hard-won, completely genuine quality, is rarer than you have any idea. And the world is beginning to reflect that back to you, not just through this person, but through the broader shift in energy that is surrounding your life right now. Things are starting to recognize you that did not recognize you before. Opportunities are beginning to arrive through channels you were not monitoring. People who previously looked past you are now looking directly at you and finding themselves unable to look away. The energy around you has changed because you have changed, and that change is not reversible. You do not go back from becoming this version of yourself. You only continue forward into it. Last thing, if you made it all the way to the end of this, and something in you feels lighter, or more certain, or more settled than when you pressed play, that feeling is accurate. That feeling is real information, and I want you to trust it. Drop something in the comments and tell me who this reading is for in your life. Is this someone new? Someone unexpected? Someone who came out of nowhere and surprised you? Is this an ex? Someone from your past who is circling back with something different in their energy this time? Is this someone you have known for a while, but something is shifting between you in a way you are only now starting to let yourself acknowledge? Tell me in the comments, because I read them, And this reading's energy is going to be alive in that section. And I want to feel who is here for this. And if someone in your life is walking through something similar, someone who has been overlooked or underestimated, or has been waiting a long time to be seen clearly by someone who actually had options and chose them anyway, share this with them today. Because sometimes what someone needs most is not advice or strategy. Sometimes what they need is just to hear that the waiting was not in vain, that the becoming was not invisible, even when it felt like it was, that what they went through was producing something real, even when they could not see the evidence of it yet. You were chosen from among everyone, from among the crowd and the noise and all the available options. Something in this person kept returning to you until it could not justify returning anywhere else. And the crown that is moving toward you now, the recognition, the elevation, the being seen clearly by someone who had every reason and every opportunity to look elsewhere, it was always going to find its way to you. Not because you are lucky, because you earned it by becoming someone it could not pass over. Receive it with both hands. Wear it like you always knew it was coming, because the truest part of you did.